G'day guys, and welcome to this business management lesson. In today's lesson, we're looking at key knowledge point 124. That is Unit 1, Area of Study 2, and the fourth key knowledge point for this area of study. Today specifically, we're looking at the costs and benefits of purchasing an existing business compared with establishing a new business. Now, when you set out to become an entrepreneur or a business owner, you have a choice. You can start your own business, and that is a common experience for many entrepreneurs, but it might be that you prefer the idea of purchasing an established business, a ready-made business that you can tailor to your own desires, but you won't have to go through the process of starting it completely from scratch. Each of these options has its own advantages and disadvantages. When it comes to establishing a new business, one advantage is that you would have complete control over the operations. You would be able to leave your mark on this business in every aspect because you're designing it from the ground up. Another advantage of establishing a new business is that you won't have to pay for someone else's pre-established relationship with the customers and the work that they've already put into building a brand reputation. You're not going to have to pay extra for that because, once again, you're starting from scratch. You would have complete control and complete autonomy because, once again, starting from scratch means there are no preconceived ideas about how this business should run. There'll be no customers coming to you saying, well, the old owner used to let me do X or Y. You will be completely in charge. And certainly, you're not going to have to pay for the mistakes of anyone else. There might be people who were customers of the old business that maybe they had a negative interaction with the old business owner or the old business manager, and they're not going back because they don't trust that business anymore. You might not be aware of this when you buy the business, if you're buying a pre-established business, and you could, if you're buying an established business, be paying for the mistakes that other people have made. But if you're starting your own business, that's not a risk. You get to keep any ideas that you have and implement in this business. What that means is the intellectual property that comes with the development of a business. Logos, uniform designs, items on the menu. If any of it is copyrighted or trademarked, you would keep all of that. And certainly anything that you do that builds a competitive advantage would be yours. And you don't need to pay anything for the intangible assets, those intellectual property or concepts that would come if you're buying an established business. Establishing your own business means that you're not having to pay for the work that went into that by another business owner. Of course, there are disadvantages, and you can probably tell from the size of this font that there are a few more disadvantages than advantages that I'm going to bring to your attention right now. There is a far greater degree of uncertainty and risk when establishing a new business when compared to buying an established business. An established business already has accounts records and sales records. You know when you're going into that business venture how successful it is and what kind of turnover it's making. But when you're starting from scratch, you don't know if this business is going to be successful or not. There's a chance it might not be. Starting a business from scratch is a lot more work. Hiring and training staff, developing relationships with suppliers, developing plans and policies for your operations in your business is all a huge amount of work that wouldn't be part of the process if you bought an already operating business. It can take a lot longer with a brand new business to build a customer base. And until you've got an established customer base, you can't rely on regular sales. So, establishing a new business might mean that it's going to take quite a time before you're seeing a regular profit, because you have to spend a lot of time and effort to build up your customer base. And certainly, you'll need to spend time and effort and energy to build up your reputation. It's just as important to build up a reputation to attract customers as it is to have customers and try and get them to return by pleasing them with your product or service. Certainly, banks don't necessarily like to lend out money to risky lenders. And someone who is asking for a huge amount of money or even just a medium amount of money to start a brand new unproven business venture is quite risky, because if that business turns out to not be feasible or not be profitable, the bank is likely to just lose their money, and it costs banks quite a lot of money to chase down debt. So banks are much more likely to be a bit prickly if you're asking for money to fund an unproven venture. Of course, a suitable location will need to be sourced for any brand new business, and this will be need to be sourced and resourced from scratch, which means that if you're going to start a brand new business, you need to find somewhere to put it. You need to find somewhere to source all of the resources and the machinery you might need. If you're going to open a cafe, you'll need to find somewhere you can have the cafe. You'll need to make sure that it has adequate parking for customers, outdoor seating if that's your thing. You'll need to find somewhere that you can access an espresso machine and refrigerators for your milk. You'll need to find kitchen supply stores, all sorts of things, and all of that work needs to start from scratch because none of it will have been done for you ahead of time. Certainly, if you're starting a new business from scratch, in the time it takes you to get up and get running as profitable, it's quite possible that competition that you hadn't foreseen will also get going. It might be that an established business sees that you're creating a successful business and they diversify their business to move into your market and try and take some of your market share of whatever it is that you're doing. Or it might be in the time it took you to set up and get going, someone else has had a similar idea or even copied your idea, and competition might pop up unexpectedly. Certainly, a brand new business brings with it brand new mistakes that can be made, things that you didn't foresee. Certainly, if you have to make a decision on every aspect of your business, then it's more likely that eventually you're going to make a bad decision and make a mistake. So with a brand new business venture, establishing a new business, there's more scope for error. And finally, the final disadvantage of establishing a new business is that it will take a long time to see a profit. Because you don't have a customer base when you get started, and you don't have business goodwill with the community, you haven't built your reputation, it will take time before you're making enough sales to see a return on the investment that you put into starting off your business in the first place. Now we can flip that all around on its head, and many of the advantages and disadvantages of buying an established business are just the inverse of what we've just talked about for establishing a new business. For example, the advantages of buying an established business include it's much simpler because things like the registration of the business name have already happened. Hiring of staff has already happened. Deciding on staff uniforms, sourcing machinery, building relationships with suppliers, all of that has already happened. And most importantly, a customer base is already established and a reputation is already developed. So that's all a huge time and effort saving endeavor if you're going to buy an established business when compared to starting your own business. And certainly, established businesses already have proven financial records. You can see before you buy an established business whether or not they are profitable. And you will know from the financial records they've been keeping whether or not this business is one that you want to buy, whether you can see that it will continue to be profitable into the future. When you're establishing a business from scratch, it's quite possible that unexpected costs crop up, and the amount of money you're hoping to spend starting up your business might not be accurate in the very beginning. But when you're buying a business, you and the seller can agree on a price, and it is unlikely that there'll be any hidden fees or hidden surprises, things that you need to spend money on later. Certainly, an established business is already operational and already profitable, so you'd expect if you're buying an established business, assuming there's not any time that the business goes offline or stops being productive, stops operating during the during the handover of management, you would expect that an established business is able to become more operational and more profitable much more quickly. Certainly, operating procedures are already established. The business already has existing relationships with the suppliers, staff, and clients and customers, and you've got policies and systems in place. So, by and large, the two greatest advantages are a great deal of planning and preparation is already done for you, and that you expect the business to be operating much more quickly. Of course, disadvantages include that you have to pay for all of that planning, all of that goodwill, all of those intangible assets like logo and uniform and policies, etc., that are part of a business. So the upfront costs of buying an established business are likely to be much greater than starting a business from scratch. And there is always the potential that there are problems with the business that you didn't see coming. Maybe the person who previously owned the business decided to sell because they got wind that a competitor, a very strong competitor, would be opening up nearby, and they've decided to sell before that's a reality. If they don't disclose that to you during the purchase process, then you might take over this business, be very excited, have an under new management opening, and then 6 months later, the Bunnings opens down the road from your hardware store and puts you out of business. So that is a possibility when you're buying an established business. And of course, when you're paying for someone else's work building a customer base and building a reputation, it's possible that you could be, once again, buying a lemon. Just because a business has an established reputation doesn't necessarily mean that it's a very good reputation. And so that's something you want to be very careful of if you're thinking of buying an established business. In summary for this key knowledge point, we can break down everything we've spoken about into a simple table like this to help you understand it more clearly. Starting your own business comes with the advantage that you'll have complete autonomy and control of all business decisions, and you don't have to pay for existing goodwill. However, there is a risk, there is a disadvantage, and that's much, much greater risk. Whereas if you're buying an existing business, you'll have established operations and procedures already in place, and you'll have existing goodwill, you'll have an existing reputation. However, it's going to cost you a lot more because you're paying for the work that someone else has done in preparing that business. That's all for today. See you next time.